Last week, I showed how the Bills ran the same play 29 times in one game against the Steelers. So they just come out with the tight end tight to the right, the two condensed receivers just outside of him, and from that, they just run this zone give. James Cook here cuts it back, takes it 19 yards. So that happened 29 times, but Joe Brady, being the absolute GOAT, understood that he ran it 29 times and understood that the Bengals were going to be prepping for that play all week. So when you come out first play of the game, you have the tight end attached to the right, you get the two condensed receivers tight to the right. What are the Bengals thinking? Oh my God, it's that zone give that they ran 29 times last week. So when you snap the ball after you motion Tyrell Shavers across, you're going to pull the GOAT David Edwards. He's pulling right. You're going to combine that with the play action. All of a sudden, both the linebackers are just crashing down because they saw that play 29 times on film. So then you just run a play action. You're just going to hit it right over the top to Dawson Knox. First play of the game, just completely countered what that Bengals defense had been thinking all week. Absolutely awesome stuff. But then he did it again. First play of the second half. Exact same look, tight end tight to the right, two receivers condensed just outside of him. Motion Shavers across, exact same play. You're going to pull David Edwards, combine that with the play action. Linebacker gets brought down. Dawson Knox, he's wide open. Oh my God, it's just awesome. I love Joe Brady so much. He is the absolute GOAT.
The Buffalo Bills have a new head coach in Joe Brady at One Bills Drive. We are going to discuss his offense, the players, the personnel, his play calling with Peter Herzog of Film Watchers. Let's go.
To my friend Nate and all the listeners of this podcast, no one circles the wagons than Nate Discate. Circle the wagons, Buffalo.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. The Bills make me wanna.
What's up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to the first official offseason episode of Circling the Wagons. We are going to talk anything and everything Joe Brady related, Buffalo Bills offense related, with the man of the hour, Peter Herzog from the amazing site Film Watchers on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere you can find his work. Definitely give him a follow. But I'd like to welcome Peter to the podcast, man. Peter, it is so good to have you on. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to do this. This will be a fun episode. I love talking Joe Brady. I'm excited for him to be head coach. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is so when I messaged you, over a month ago to try to set this up, the initial thought was, people in, Bill's fan base, myself included, we were kind of critical of Joe Brady's play calling. And, luckily, thank God, like Instagram, one of the good things about social media is your feed showed up on my For You page, right? And I was like, wow, like this is so insightful. This is so interesting. This is a take that most Bills fans and even folks that watch film don't necessarily have. So I wanted to dive deeper into it just in general. We will, but like this he ended up becoming the Bills head coach, which we could not have guessed even a month ago that was going to be the case. First off, thoughts on the hire. Are you excited for it? What did you think about the move and just in general, like your thoughts about how this all transpired?
Yeah, so Sean McDermott, I thought was a perfectly fine head coach. So defensive scheme related, I thought he was pretty solid. I don't think he was like over the top, not like he's a great defensive mind. What I thought he brought to the table for the Bills was more so the culture, more so the idea of how he brought that leadership mentality to the Bills. Now, I don't think he should have been fired. I thought that was a very weird move. I thought that was just kind of reactionary to that loss in Denver. I thought it was making him the scapegoat. But given that he was fired, given that that all happened, even though I don't really agree with it, I do think the next best move was hiring Joe Brady as head coach. I think promoting him from within is a good move. He maintains that culture to the best extent that he could without having Sean McDermott there, but you keep a brilliant offensive mind in the building, which I think is crucial. And like the Jags, I'm not sure, or the Buccaneers, like the Buccaneers were probably a little bit pissed that Liam Cohen went to the Jags. I think the Bills would have been kind of pissed if they didn't promote Joe Brady and he went to the Raiders or something, and all of a sudden they get a good turnaround. So I thought the move was the best possible move given that they fired Sean McDermott.
It's funny, outside of Bills Mafia, I mean, it makes sense that Joe Brady became the head coach, because we've been talking for years, if something were to happen to Sean McDermott, he's a defensive-minded guy. We wanted a young, offensive, up-and-coming, coordinator. And sure, we don't think of necessarily the guy within the building, but this ended up being that. And I think after his press conference, Bills Mafia felt a lot more confident in that move, and everything you said makes a lot of sense. And he was being, he had a second interview with the Ravens. That's a hot job. There's, like you said, the Raiders, there was the Falcons, there were a lot of teams interested in him. And so maybe, like you said, if that was the grand scheme of things, I hate to give One Bills Drive that much credit that they saw that in the future. Oh, Joe Brady's going to get hired. We gotta fire McDermott now. But maybe that was the case, and if so, that may have been a good move. But like, even going back into this last year, following him the last year or two, or how long you've been following the offense of Joe Brady, it's kind of evolved a little bit. First off, talk about, before we get into scheme and things that you like the personnel of the Buffalo Bills, the state of the Bills offense. What areas do you like? What areas do you not like? What areas could they improve on in the Bills offense?
So for personnel, I would say their O-line is solid. Now, I'm pretty sure David Edwards is going to become a free agent after this year. So I think he's important to re-sign. He's a very, very smart football player. So I would want them to re-sign him. And then that offense literally is perfectly fine outside of receiver. I'm pretty sure everybody agrees with that. So if they go and get Carnell Tate in the draft, that would be incredible. I think they should go snag Carnell Tate. I think he would be a good fit for Josh Allen, solid frame for Josh Allen. He's a good route runner, decent playmaker, and that kind of stuff would be important for that offense, because it would complement Khalil Shakir's good underneath route running. It would, I'm not sure what's going to go on with Keon Coleman now, but it's not a pure X like Keon Coleman is. So it would be a good fit in that offense, I think, for a Carnell Tate maybe.
So the Bills actually have two free agents on the offensive line. They have David Edwards, like you mentioned, and then Connor McGovern, their center.
That's huge too. I didn't know he was going to be a free agent. He needs to get re-signed as well.
So okay, outside, without money getting too much into it, I know you can't, figure that in when you're the GM. You have to figure in money, but on the outside from your watching, if you have to choose one of the two and you can't bring both back, which one do you choose?
That's a tough question. Probably David Edwards. I think David Edwards, based off of what I can see on film, I don't know fully because I don't know the insider information, but it seems to me like David Edwards does a lot in terms of pre-snap identification. There was one snap against the Patriots where Josh Allen took it for a 20-yard gain. And David Edwards pre-snap, you could see him calling out the safety that blitzed about 10 seconds before the snap, which is very rare. It's usually 1 or 2 seconds before the snap. And he called him out. And then when that safety rotated down, David picked up the edge that was breaking to the inside. Deion Dawkins picked up the safety that was blitzing, and it hit for a 20-yard gain because of that blitz pickup. So I think David Edwards is probably one of the most underrated players, not just for the Bills, but in the NFL. He is a very smart football player, and he's very technically sound, and I think he's very important to hold on to.
Okay, great. So when you're talking about wide receivers to upgrade the Bills roster, from my standpoint, it looks like we need a speed threat. Like you mentioned, Darnell Tate. In your opinion, when you look at the Bills offense, a lot of people will criticize it based on the fact that there were a lot of wide receiver screens to Khalil Shakir. He wasn't able to be used underneath. When you look at the way that he was used in the Bills offense, do you think that this is more of that's how Joe Brady likes to run his offense, or was he doing as good a job as he could with the weapons that he had on the field?
I think he was doing as good of a job as he could with the weapons he had. When you look at that offense, and you look at the early down play calling early in drives, it was always heavy personnel, runs, play action, things setting up for what could potentially be bigger plays that drive. And they rarely hit those bigger plays because they have no receiving threats. When you look at the 1st and 10, 2nd and somewhat long, you just don't have the capability to push the ball downfield. So Joe Brady resulted to a lot of those heavy personnel runs, to a lot of those quick screens out that maybe pick 4 or 5 yards up on 1st and 10, 2nd and long. And it just sets the offense up better when you can't move the ball, because if it just works a lot better on 3rd and 5 compared to 3rd and 8, especially with those receivers. So that's why you saw a ton of those play action hitting the tight ends. That's why the tight ends feasted. That's why Khalil Shakir was the leading receiver. He had like 700 yards and he was the leading receiver, and just that kind of stuff. And then obviously James Cook went off. You got one of the best lines in football, so that helped.
Yeah, I mean, and looking back at it, I wasn't thrilled about Joe Brady's offense, but like you said, I mean, there's only so much that he can do with what he's got, when it comes down to it. But I mean, people wanted Brian Dable back. It's like, well, Brian Dable was good. He had Stephon Diggs, and it's not equal year to year, but he didn't create an MVP in Josh Allen in his term here. He didn't create the rushing leader in the NFL in another season. I mean, it kind of shows Joe Brady's versatility a little bit for play calling. And I know that, now that this has happened, I've seen highlights of, LSU's offense in the national championship. I mean, he had Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. He wasn't throwing screens like that. There's a downfield game. So you see that, it makes you feel. So when there's so many times that, I've watched your clips and you're like, Joe Brady is the GOAT. And so at first I went from like, I'm not really a big fan of Joe Brady to like, it wasn't like somebody was not criticizing him or giving him praise. Like you loved what he was doing. So can you like give me a few examples of like the areas that you love that he does, or that you see him playing like 3D chess and stuff like that?
Yeah. So what I love most about Joe Brady is how he sets up his own plays, because you see different things with coordinators. Some coordinators love to attack what defensive tendencies are. Some coordinators love to attack using their own tendencies against the defense, knowing how they're going to react. And that's what Joe Brady does. You saw a ton of similar formations. And I think that's some part of why Bills fans don't like him, is because they're like, why are you coming out in the same formation? It's because there's a lot of reasoning behind it. If you go look at one of my recent videos on Joe Brady, you see him come out in this very same look out of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends attached to the right, a receiver just outside of him. It could be out of different personnel groupings, out of somewhat different formations, but very similar. And he schemes the plays together. He gets run, play action, run, play action, run, play action, touchdown. And like something like that, I love, because it keeps the defense on their toes and they don't know what to expect. Because if you show the same formation, they're like, this could be play action. This could be a Josh Allen keeper. This could be a give to James Cook that picks up 11 yards. And he keeps it very versatile in the same formations, and keeps the same formations throughout different games, but also kind of changes them as the year goes on. Like early in the year, they weren't running some of the formations that they ran real late in the year. So I like a lot of that. And also what I like about Joe Brady is I do see he has some really good like pre-game notices. Like against the Steelers, they ran that same play. I think it was 27 times. It was a very similar rushing play. And it was because they saw the type of front that the Steelers were running, and that they knew that this specific scheme with this type of rushing play and how they could run it both ways, maybe mix in some different variations, that they saw that they could attack it like that. And it worked out for like 180 yards. So I love that kind of commitment where if something works, it's going to work and he's going to keep pounding it. And that's what I really love from Joe Brady more than anything.
So if there are some things that, that you just mentioned that you love about Joe Brady, what are some things that you think that he could work on, or as he becomes the head coach, because he says he's still playing, or he's still calling plays on the offensive side, what areas do you think he could still improve on, or would you like to see him change up?
Yeah, I do notice he gets tunnel vision at times, kind of like what I was talking about with how he calls similar formations and stuff. Or not similar formations, but how he notices things pregame and then attacks them consistently throughout the game. Sometimes, and that's why like the Browns game was so close, is he saw some of those things pregame, and maybe there were slight adjustments or there were slight tweaks that the defense made that makes it different in the game. And then when you get in the game, it seems like it takes some time for Joe Brady to adjust to those adjustments. I think he could do a better job of reacting a little bit faster, but for the most part, he seems to get those pregame reads pretty much correct. But when he gets them wrong, and like that offense looks stale in the first quarter or the first quarter and a half, I think he could do a better job adjusting quicker. We saw that in the Patriots game, pretty sure the Browns game, those games like that, were the second Patriots game. Those were closer than they needed to be, I thought, because Joe Brady took a little too long to adjust.
That would explain why we've seen such slow starts in the Bills offense at times, why we've seen, but I mean, to his credit, he does usually change it up at halftime and make the adjustments that he needs to. Like you said, I think as a Bills fan, we're fan base, we're hoping he does that a little bit quicker in the future, obviously. Okay. So imagine this.
Real quick. I also think you guys need to give him a little more grace. He's a very young OC. Like, you see this a lot from a lot of the younger guys. They just have some bad habits that I think they need to fix. And I think that these are going to get fixed. Like, that would be like asking a 22-year-old quarterback to go out and throw for 350 yards a game. You just can't do that. He doesn't have the experience that somebody like Andy Reid has calling plays. He doesn't know as much as somebody like that. So I think you guys do need to give him, just Bills fans in general, just a little bit more grace when it comes to the play calling, because he is young.
Yeah. I mean, he is only 36. I forgot how young he was up until the press conference. I knew he wasn't older, but yeah, I mean, and to your point, he's only been calling plays for what he did it for a season and a half in Carolina and only 2.5 seasons here. So what? That's 4 seasons maybe, right?
Yeah.
So the NFL level. So yeah, no, great, excellent point there. So imagine that you're Joe Brady, right? Like, you're looking at this offense, what we currently have, you're talking to Brandon Beane in free agency, in the draft. You're talking about pieces that you need to put around Josh Allen. You mentioned a wide receiver in the draft. I mean, are you just looking at wide receiver to help make this offense better? Like, from your standpoint, like how you would like to see a Josh Allen offense run, what would you add to this team or take away from to get this like really humming, even though it is actually doing pretty well on an EPA per play standpoint, but what would you do to improve it?
I mean, it was literally one of the best offenses in football, and you didn't even have an entire aspect of the offense. That's why I'm so high on him, on Joe Brady in general. So what I would do is just go out and snag some really good receiver. A.J. Brown, maybe you could make some move for him. Justin Jefferson, I know I've seen a ton of guys talking like that. Not sure if it'll be that big, but somebody like a good draft pick, like Carnell Tate, like I said, that would be crucial, because then it allows you to really open up the playbook on 2nd and 10. You don't have to worry about getting 6 yards, because you more than likely can get a first down on 3rd and 8, especially with Josh Allen's legs. You have James Cook coming out of the backfield. The tight ends are incredible. And if you add in a good receiving threat, that's just more stuff that on 3rd and longs you could get, which opens up the playbook more on 2nd and long. So that's what I'm really thinking. You got to go receiver for this offense. That's the most important thing to address this offseason.
If you're looking at Carnell Tate, what round is, I mean, he's going first round, right? I mean, where would the Bills have to go up to get him?
I don't know enough, to be honest. I haven't done a ton of scouting yet. That's going to be after the Super Bowl for me. I've seen a little bit of Carnell Tate. I don't know where he's projected to go, but I would expect the Bills might have to trade up to get him. But
he'd be
it would be tight. So that's more so just a general like suggestion, like somebody like Carnell Tate.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So like from a schematic standpoint, you're the offensive coordinator now. There's some thoughts that Josh Allen should be playing out of center more often. Maybe he should use a lot more play action than he has. I mean, what are your thoughts? What would you change schematically about the Bills, maybe from a run standpoint or from a passing attack, besides just personnel, like different schemes, more motion, anything you'd like? I mean, I'd like to see personally, like I'll give you an example. I would like to see the running backs get more involved in the passing game.
That was literally the only thing I was going to say. Probably running backs in passing game. Now, I thought nearing the end of the year, Joe Brady did a better job with James Cook, but I hate when they mix in like Ray Davis. I don't like when they mix him in. Like, I think James Cook is a better 3rd down back. So I did not agree with that from Joe Brady at all. Like, Ray Davis was always in on 3rd downs. I thought that was pretty weird. But outside of that, it's probably because he's a better pass blocker. But anyway, outside of that, there's really not much schematically I would change. I really like Joe Brady's scheme. I thought he did a great job. He was above average, league average in play action rate. He was about league average in motion. So things seem to be pretty normal. Like, it's not a bad offense, not a bad scheme or anything. I wouldn't change much. It would have to be based off of the personnel. So if you go and get a different receiver this year in the draft, you probably change up your scheme a little bit, maybe work a little more out of the gun, I would think. But then outside of that, not too much different.
As far as from a pass blocking standpoint, I mean, Josh Allen took more sacks this year than he has in any season in his entire career. He's coming off of foot surgery. I mean, he's going to be turning 30 this year. You mentioned the Bills' O-line being good. I believe that too. You know, they have been really good. Did you see a step back from Josh Allen this year, you know, when you're watching him on film? And do you think a lot of those sacks had to do with him either not diagnosing where the blitzes were coming from or the pass protection, or was it maybe Joe Brady just leaving only 5 guys to block whoever was out there?
No, it literally goes back to wide receiver separation again. The Bills were top 10 in pressure rate allowed, top 10 in no blitz pressure rate allowed. Josh Allen had a top 10 longest time to throw. That's not an O-line issue. That's not a pressure issue. If your receivers are getting open, Josh Allen would have plenty of time to hit them, but the receivers are not getting open. That's the issue. So he has to hold on to the ball, and he ends up getting sacked.
Mm-hmm. And it feels like, I mean, from the outside that the Bills have, we like Khalil Shakir, you know, there's guys that you like, but I mean, they probably have like a bottom 5 receiving core, right?
I think it's like bottom 2. I mean, it's terrible. It is terrible. That was the only issue with the Bills this year. On maybe pass rush, maybe some run defense, but outside of that, it was literally just receiver.
So when I'm as a Bills fan, I'm watching this unfold. The Bills fire Sean McDermott, and to me, it feels like they kind of overperformed where they should have based on like what you just said, like a bottom 2. That also speaks to Josh Allen, right? Like Josh Allen's done a ton with what he's been given, right? So you see that. Do you see them, you know, now that this offseason, like, I mean, they have to do well. I mean, they're keeping a lot of guys, you know, in the building. Brandon Beane, Joe Brady. I would imagine that they're going to go aggressively after wide receivers so that they're not as bad as they were last season, right?
I would hope so. I think that's the only possible move you could make. But I did want to throw in one more thing relating to Joe Brady. They had the 6th highest average target separation. So like you have those receivers, and Josh Allen had the 6th highest rate of separation throwing to those receivers. That's not an indication that he has good receivers. That's an indication that Joe Brady did one hell of a job scheming up his receivers to get them open. So I wanted to share that because that really impressed me. That was like, holy crap, he does not have anybody, yet Josh Allen had the 6th most room to throw the ball to. So I just thought that was incredible. I wanted to share that with everybody because that was one hell of a stat relating to Joe Brady.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because what anyone would, I imagine, want out of their coordinators or their head coaches is someone that gets the most or adjusts their scheme to the talent that they have on the field. Is that common across the league now where you see guys like Joe Brady where they're trying to, you know, take what they have? Or do you see a lot of old school mentality from coordinators where they'll just like, no, I run a 3-4. This is what I do. Or no, I always run, you know, the West Coast offense. This is what I do. I mean, I guess I take it for granted. Are all coaches like that, or is it half and half?
No, that's why I love Joe Brady so much. You go look at the Chargers this year. They did nothing that complemented their personnel. You have Justin Herbert. I've thought Ladd McConkey was really good. Quentin Johnston was great at the beginning of this year. And they just continued to try and run this power offense. And even when Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt were injured, they didn't adjust well and still tried to pound the rock, and it didn't work very well. So I love how Joe Brady adjusts his offensive scheme based on the personnel. It reminds me of what Andy Reid has done in Kansas City when he was able to get a ton of downfield threat with Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. You saw their explosive play rate just through the roof. But then when he doesn't have those speed threats and he needs to work more underneath, you see them really effective on these underneath balls. So I really like what Joe Brady has done by changing up the scheme based off of his personnel.
Absolutely. So Peter, how did you, just on a personal note, how did you get into film watching? I mean, did you play? Did you just like take it up did you coach? I have no idea. Like, how did you get into this? Because it's really insightful. I mean, we're lucky we have Cover One in Buffalo, but like, I mean, it's great to see, you know, someone like yourself young and that's been in, you know, doing this and has had a ton of success.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just turned 21, so I'm very young. I started playing Madden in Madden 12 when I was like 6 and just kept playing. Like I've grinded it my whole life. I was like top 100 in weekend league when I was like 15. So like I've always been like a total football nerd. Like I made my first playbook at like 10 years old, and like I didn't have any clue, but like I drew up a scissors concept, which like works in the NFL. So I was like, man, but anyway, it's just that kind of stuff. I've always loved this stuff. And like probably since 7th grade, I've kind of researched just like scheme stuff, like how players get open on plays, like how you beat a defense based off of what they're doing. I've always loved that kind of stuff. So I just researched it. And then about a year ago, I just started making videos, and they were terrible, but like now they're pretty solid, and I've built up a following. And just I like to cover the scheme side of stuff because I noticed nobody on social media really talks about schemes or talks about coaching. So I wanted to fill that little void and just talk schemes because that's what I like to talk about.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm glad to have you on. One of the many reasons in seeing your work, you definitely hit all of those areas. When you were playing Madden as a kid, right? And you're a film savant now. So, but like, would you ever like go back and like rewatch a game and be like, hey, my left guard really isn't doing as well. I need to draft a new left guard. Like, would you even go into that level or no?
It was a different kind of level. Like, when I would be like 13 or 14, I would be like, all right, this guy's running cover 3. Let me run PA crossers, roll out right and hit the crosser because it works underneath the deep third. Like that's pretty simple if you play Madden, but like I was doing that. So that's just kind of the thing. It was all like strategic, like, hey, how do I get this guy open in between zones? That's what I loved. I loved like the chess side of it.
So the content is going well, across all platforms. You're on YouTube, you're everywhere. Is there an end goal? Like, is this what you want to do forever? Or is there like, hey, like if a team gave me a chance, I'd look at that or no? I mean, I guess I'm curious like where this leads to.
The only team I'd probably like set some stuff down for is the Saints. I'm a diehard Saints fan, always have been. So like, even though I love the Bills, like I watch every Bills game this year. I watched every Rams game this year. The Saints are my team. The Saints will always be my team. And if they called me, I'd pick up the phone and I'd probably put down everything. But outside of that, I'd just do this because coaching is stressful. Coaching is a lot of pressure. It's a lot of having to deal with stuff that I don't really want to deal with. So I'd just happily, chill in my bedroom and make football videos for people.
Yeah, as far as like hours, I mean, there's a ton of hours into coaching and film and analysis in general. I mean, how many hours would you say you put in a week? Because it's not just like, I mean, if you were to watch one Bills game snap for snap or I mean, that's like, an hour or two just looking at the offense in one day. I mean, how much time do you usually spend on this?
It depends. In season, on like Monday through Thursday, like right after Sunday and everything, it's like 12 hours a day. So probably 48 hours over those 4 days, and then probably like 12 over that Friday and Saturday. So 60, and then I watch football, but I don't count that as work. That's just me watching football. I'd be doing that anyway. So
that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on, explaining, the offense, what you like, what you don't like, what you think they can improve on. I think that this was important in general. I mean, it makes me feel better as a fan, as someone who, cares about the team, to see it being brought in such an optimistic light. Because like I mentioned, everyone was kind of down on Joe Brady. And I don't know if that's just the algorithm and, in bringing those to my attention, or if that was really the feelings for it during the season. And then, the more I was watching your content, I'm like, what? At first I was thinking, maybe Joe Brady's the issue. And then I started saying, I don't think he is. I think it's more of the personnel. And I would watch your things and like, people don't say Joe Brady's the GOAT and how much you think of it without having something to back it up with. So thank you so much for coming on, Peter. This has been a blast. Where can people find all of your amazing work? You don't just do Bills, obviously. You do it like all different teams. I saw you just had one up about Ashton Genty from the Raiders. Like where can they find all your work?
I'm on film.watchers1 on Instagram, and TikTok. Now my TikTok, I don't even have access to it right now because there was a hacker, but I'm trying to get that back. But anyway, so Film Period Watchers 1 on Instagram and TikTok. I think it's just Film Watchers 1 on X, Twitter, and then Film Dash Watchers on YouTube. And I got a big series on YouTube coming out, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I'm gonna be breaking down film with players. David Edwards is one of them, so
nice.
That'll be good.
Nice. I'll be sharing that one across all social media platforms as soon as I can. Thank you again. Like I said, I appreciate it. You're the man.
Thank you for having me. This was great. I love just talking ball.
Yeah. And it was a blast, man. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming on. Thank you, Bills Mafia. Go Bills, and we'll talk to you guys all again very soon.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.